6 done. Okay, so good evening, everybody. And I'm Uma from PeopleFirst. And it gives me immense pleasure to welcome Nandakumar, which is perfectly okay to call him Nandu, and Pandiyan. You would have seen, you'll hear a lot more from them. So I'm just going to take 30 seconds to 1 minute or so of airspace. And then I want to just make sure that you hear a lot more from them. So what is this series all about? This began with, I think this is the 6th of our series in PeopleFirst. So PeopleFirst, we are a 25-year-old people consulting company, primarily into talent hiring, talent development, coaching, and integral education. You also have one of the screens here, you see Arul Dev. He's the founder, CEO of PeopleFirst, and he began way back in 1995. So in this lockdown period, we were extremely inspired to offer a lot of things that we can to, each one's passion to the world. And it began with, again, you'll see Anto Vincent here. We have, I think, Mr. Gopal in here. So there were a lot of the people who've been earlier here on our forums. And they started this whole series. So we're happy to bring it to the 6th series. And this is very, very special for me too, because Pandiyan has been my earlier boss and has been a mentor throughout. And one of the extreme futuristic HR leaders. If those who have worked under him would really get inspired by him. So it's an honor to host him in this platform. And I got introduced to Nandu as a person who is one of the few business leaders who are excellent people managers. That's how I got introduced to Nandu. So I think it's definitely an extremely good honor to have both of them on the platform here. So that's the 2 clues I'm giving to all of you here. Which goes to say that they bring rich years of experience, a lot of stories. But when I interacted with them and we were preparing for the session, I think the best thing that I loved was their passion to talk about people potential and how can organizations, whether we are in HR, whether in business, whether we're leaders, how do we harness this potential? And I think that's exactly what's the passion that I saw in them. And I'm glad to host that for all of you. So with that, I'm just going to take 1 second to sort of say that these are 3 days. So it's 1 hour each day. The format that we go about is probably we have both of them talk to us for about 25 minutes to 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. And hosting all of these webinars for us, we have seen that the life and the kind of richness of dialogue definitely comes from the interaction and the people. And you will also see that all of them who've signed up, many of them bring years of experience themselves. So I think it's in the dialogue that we really would love you all to engage, ask the questions, make it valuable for yourself and the others listening. And I think that's the spirit of running these webinars. So what we will do is we'll get both of them to start sharing between themselves. If there are questions, please do use the chat. You don't have to think about it, just put it in there. But then I will have a look at it, so will both of them. And if there's anything topical, we bring it in the middle, but otherwise we'll bring it at the end together. So we'll monitor that, but you don't have to wait till the end to ask your questions. So keep it going, keep your comments going in the chat box. And we've muted everybody for convenience. So when required, we request you to unmute it when we are having the dialogue. But until then, by default, we have put everybody on mute. With that, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you and on to Nandu and Pandiyan.
Okay. So first of all, thanks to Uma and Arul for giving me a chance to participate in something like this. Yes, ideally we should all be sitting in one room, talking to each other. But then, as we know, we have to make the best of the circumstances. So that's what we are doing, the next best thing. And it's really great. So thanks, Uma and Arul. I was going through the list of people who are, who are registered. And I find a very rich mix of people with a lot of experience. And there are some young students. There are people from, who are managers running organizations. And there are professors from universities, students. So young and old, industry, academics, very rich mix of people. So what we will do in this session, though, Nandu and I may have some things to share. You all need not restrict yourself to questions. Yes, questions are welcome, but then you also can, share your thoughts, ideas, opinions, whatever, because ultimately it's all, what we jointly kind of learn from each other. So thanks to all the people who have taken the time to join us. And I should briefly, Uma mentioned about Nandu. I worked with Nandu for about 6-7 years, more than 20 years ago, but then we have remained friends ever since. And I know a lot of people who have worked under Nandu. I know them. In the company, we work together. And also in other companies, Nandu has worked. Over these, 20, 25 years, I've seen many of them, and all of them said, yeah, he's the best boss we had. And for a person who was mostly, business development, marketing, who was CEO, president of companies, he's a great HR manager. So for a session like this, I thought it is very nice to have someone like him. He may not have a formal qualification in HR, but he understands people, and his track record speaks for itself. People who have worked with him 20 years, 30 years ago still remember him fondly, and who are in touch with him. So it's a great pleasure for me to be sitting in this session along with Nandu, having a conversation with him. So thanks to Nandu for accepting the invitation and joining. You have any preliminary words before we get into it?
Good evening, everyone. Okay, and thank you, Uma. Thank you, Arul. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for this opportunity of mingling with so many people. Yeah, as Pandiyan said, I know Pandiyan for over 20 years now. We work together. But, this dialogue with Pandiyan is something I've been doing now every week. We speak 2-3 times a week. Okay, when he's in Chennai, we do it. We do it in person. But now that he's away, we continue doing a video dialogue. And for me, it is an education because he keeps updating me on latest affairs. He updates my knowledge on psychology. He talks to me about fallacies. He talks to me about biases. He talks to me about a host of things. And, it's quite an education. And so when he said, let's do this dialogue, I jumped at it. Okay. So thank you. And I look forward to it. Now, Pandiyan, over to you and let's start.
Okay. Here we go. Talking about people, humans are fantastic beings. Thousands of years ago, we lived in caves, roamed around prairies and jungles among fierce animals and dangerous plants and, very difficult kind of weather conditions. And humans, as you know, were not the strongest. They were not the fastest, but they survived and thrived. And we all know exactly why. Because humans had the ability to reason, think, look at past, present, and future. But more importantly, it is not only our ability to reason and think, humans also have a very advanced sense of feelings and emotions, which lets us, dream, aspire, inspire other people, connect people together. So we had these two extraordinary abilities through which families, to tribes, to communities, to societies, to nations. So we are where we are today. Today, of course, we are not living in caves, or we are not battling wild animals. We have supercomputers and satellites and rockets and whatnot. We have built a lot of tools. But one thing which strikingly, is relevant to us for in this session is the fact that all these tools and techniques do not make us what we are. Because we know the machines that we have built, they have a limitation, have a rated capacity. I buy a BMW car, it can go up to maybe 260 kilometers an hour. An expert driver could take it to 240, not more. It will never go beyond 260. But as humans, very rarely we know our limit. We know there is a limit. I can't jump 10 feet high in the air. I know there is a limit, but I really don't know how far I can jump. And we have all seen it in our lives. When we have young children in the family, Every day when the father comes home, the child surprises. The mother is surprised to see the kind of thing the child is capable of. More often than not, we underestimate ourselves rather than, correctly estimate what our capacity is. Like when we go on hiking on a mountain, experienced guides will always, when you feel tired, you are not an experienced guy, like someone like me, you will feel like stopping. They will say, no, 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 keep going, keep going, keep going, another 5 minutes, another 30 minutes. And suddenly you get a second wind. You start going on. So most of the time as humans, we really don't know what our reserves are. That is something which is very, very important for us. This is the first submission I would make to you, that humans have kind of no rated capacity. I was talking to Nandu, and Nandu was mentioning something, he was actually saying something similar, but in a different context. It was very interesting, Nandu.
Okay. I can never tire of telling the story. Okay. In 57, in late 57, Russia put the Sputnik in the orbit. And ever since then, America has been, saying, no, hey, we can't let them get ahead. And there was John F. Kennedy saying that we'll put a man on the moon. And that was the vision set. That was the mission set. America wanted to put the first man on the moon. And in 62, I think Kennedy was visiting the Space Center in Houston, and while going with this group, he suddenly found a janitor, sweeping the pathway. He cut off from his group and went and asked the janitor, "Hey, hi, what do you do here?" And then he said, "Oh, we aim to put a man on the moon." Okay, so that is the level of commitment which a janitor had towards the cause. So I think it really went into the person, and not only in the organization, but in his house, around where he lives. I'm sure he would have spread the message saying that we're going to put a man on the moon. That was the passion that was built. Now, many people have said, work is normally contractual. Work is contractual, but effort is discretionary. Okay. Now, you can get work out of me by drawing a contract or by paying me something. But if you want my effort, okay, it's something that the individual has to give. And it doesn't come through a contract. That comes through commitment, that comes through passion. Okay, very often in sales, we say, hey, listen, you have to cover 40 outlets and you have to get a 40% productivity. Okay, there are many people who may do it, but that's at a contract level. But the discretionary effort comes when the person goes, he builds relationship with retailers. He shares his expertise with the retailer. And that's the sort of effort which good HR will deliver to organizations. I think we should never forget that work is contractual, effort is discretionary. And all of us, through good HR practice, should work towards getting the discretionary effort of employees. So that's my view, Pandiyan, as I've always said.
Yeah, the first question, Uma, you asked about what can business expect from human resource management. So in one word, one sentence, it is getting people to put in the discretionary effort. How? Yes, it's a complicated issue. It's not very easy, but that's what human resource management has to deliver. And as we have seen, human beings have no rated capacity. They have reserve strength. They can go far beyond what we imagine. So how do we get them to do it? Is that what is going to be the entire, this 3 days? We are going to touch upon various aspects of this. How do we do it? What are the problems? Who should do it? And things like that. So that is the very first, statement we thought we would make, getting the discretionary effort from all the members of the organization. That is the real, what a leader would expect from the human resource management. leads us to the next question. When we talk about companies, any decent sized company, whether they have a HR department or not, everyone knows what the HR functions are. People will say, they do recruitment, they do training, they do performance appraisal, and they do discipline and so on. But the real role of HRM is going beyond all this, whether it's HR department does or the line managers do it, a single man operation, the CEO does it. This thing we always need to keep in mind, that getting the best out of people, and we most of the time we underestimate what's the best that we can expect from people. As Nandu was saying, I think you used a very good this thing. It's contractual. Most of us, we are so worried about drafting the appointment letter and the exit clauses and NDAs and non-compete clauses and so on. We give so much of jobs to lawyers, which is important, which is required, but it's something more. The psychological contract that we have with people is what is very important. That's what I think. So if I work in an organization, do I own my job? Most of the people in many organizations, when we walk in, they don't act like they own the job. They act like they are doing a job because somebody, their supervisor or somebody has told them, or it is there in the job description or SOP. So they are doing the job. But there are exceptional organizations like the janitor in the NASA. I'm helping people put a man on the moon. There are organizations. So we need to set our expectations from HRM very high as leaders. That's the very first thing. That is, yes. Don't just, I recruited, my cycle time is low, my cost is low. All that is, baseline performance. But go beyond getting the best out of people. That's what I think. What do you say, Nandu?
Yeah. Okay. Now, what can you expect from? What is the role of HRM? Hello. Hello. Was there a problem?
No, I just muted. No, please continue.
No problem.
No, we had a guest child coming in.
Oh, very nice. That's very nice.
Mr. Gopalan has written a very nice story on the side. I'm sure you all can read it. I found it very interesting. Where somebody is talking about the horsepower. He says, okay, we can beat horsepower. How do you beat horsepower? You beat with willpower, right? Very apt kind of story.
Okay. As I say, okay. What do we expect from HR? Any business, okay, would expect recruitment from HR, but not recruitment as a ritual. It's not just putting a person on a chair, putting a person on the wall. We have to get the right people, okay, for the organization, for the job. And in this recruitment, I think Pandiyan and we had an experience where we would not go to top or A+ business schools for recruitment. This was a very conscious decision. And we would go to good schools, but we would try to get the best people from the good schools into the organization, because we found historically that the cultural fit was better, that the quality of the people was better, and that they would stay on longer. So that's very important. So it's not just important to recruit people in recruitment. There is also a whole host of value-added services that can be provided, saying that when you are recruiting people, who are the type of people who stay, who perform, who stay, okay, who fit well. Analysis like that. I don't know how many companies really do this sort of work, okay, saying that, listen, if we recruit from this industry, if we recruit from these sort of companies, if we recruit people with these sort of backgrounds, okay, they seem to fit better with us, okay, and therefore shortlist with far greater care. rather than just saying, we have a high attrition rate, people are not staying. That's a story of the times. Okay, but some thought, some analysis, and I think this problem can be addressed very well. Therefore, recruitment not just as a ritual, but recruitment with a purpose. Okay, that's a very important thing. Another HR practice, another HR management thing that's very important is being fair with people. Okay, as a business person, you see how the company treats people is apparent, and the impact of that is normally felt in operations, be it on the shop floor, be it in sales, be it in marketing. Okay, so the company must be seen as treating people fairly, not different strokes for different folks. So this is another expectation from a good HR management practice. Uh, Easy access to information. These are some very, while Pandiyan stuck to the concept level things, these are some practical aspects. There must be easy access to information. Easy access to information, even when I'm onboarding. Okay, to know what my entitlements are, to know how I get my expenses reimbursed. Okay, to know to have access to all information necessary for me to do my job, where I can source it. Okay, that sort of openness and transparency and access to information should be there. Onboarding is a very important thing. Okay, I still remember the first, one of the earliest companies I joined, my induction period was a month, and they put me through every department, not just exposure to people, but actually going down to grassroots and working. Okay, working on the shop floor like a worker, uh, and then going to the next level and next level. So I had complete access and exposure to how the company worked, how they treated people. Okay, the importance of people. I saw people who put in years, 30 years, 35 years in the organization. Okay. So, and that onboarding had a very deep impact on me. Okay, and there will be more on these things when we are doing a culture session on day 3. But there's another very important aspect of HR practice which should keep the organization intact, and that is HR should be the guardian of the soul of the company. Okay, I've seen many a company which starts small, performs excellently, great customer orientation, great employee orientation, okay, great stakeholder management, and as they grow, these things get forgotten. Somewhere, companies lose their soul. And I think preserving the soul is a very important aspect of this. I mean, these are the things I've spoken about, Pandit.
Yeah, in fact, a friend of mine called Abhijit Badri, some of you may know him. He wrote a book some time ago, Don't Hire the Best. Because the idea is not that, you should aspire for the best. Idea is to get the right fit. Because there is, what do you say best? Am I the best, if you compare me and Uma, who's best? Uma is fit for a certain job, I may not be fit. I may be fit for a job Uma is not fit for. So you look at the fit rather than best. Best is somebody who gets the highest top salary or somebody from such and such institute, not necessarily. That's what I mean. That's the concept. So don't hire the best. But in many companies, of course, we can go into recruitment and recruitment strategies. That is a topic for a different program. Briefly, I wanted to run through some of the comments. A lot of people, thanks. Afsal says the analogy between car speed limit and human limit is good. Yeah, knowing Afsal, I should have mentioned motorcycle rather than car, right? Okay, then Jason Samuel says, I like this. Do you own your job? That's the essence of definition of leadership. Yeah, I also like this, ultimately, all of us, if you work in an organization, to make sure everybody owns the job, not as a owner, I am the owner, others are employees, is not what we want. Then someone shares that, okay, I have nothing against IIM or Premier Management Institutes. Don't take it wrong. They had a policy of not taking anybody. Okay. Praise in public, admonition in private. Yeah, this is not really management wisdom. People have told us, teachers know this. When we appreciate somebody, do it in front of everyone. If you have to, correct someone, do it, private. We know the psychology behind it. But many times as managers, what we forget is when we do certain things in public, it has an effect not only on the particular individual, but also on others. Yes, definitely there is a wrong, the person feels worse than you would have done, but it also sends a message to many other people about what we think is important, what the boss subordinate relationship, and so on. That's why we, that makes a lot of sense. We will go more into it when we come to the culture part of it on the third day. Someone else, Matthew also has talked about culture. We will, in fact, talk quite a bit about it on the last day.
On day 3. I like Mr. Gopalan's story of the SOS Coast Guard motorboat.
Yeah.
Motor power versus willpower. I mean, it's definitely very good and quite relevant to what Pandiyan said, rated capacity versus unknown capacity. Great example. Thank you. Okay.
So we have another 5 minutes to finish. One last question Uma raised before we have others joining in. We will reserve the other comments for later. So Uma also asked a question. Is human resource management just common sense? So Nandu, what do you think?
I think while it's a great question, okay, I think it's a common sense is a good place to start. Okay. You don't need
sense, that's a very good commonsensical answer.
No, common sense is a good place to start for human. Treat people well. That's common sense. Okay, you treat people well, they'll treat you well. Okay, solve problems. Don't try to fix blame. Okay, the list is endless. You can go on. Be nice to people, be firm, communicate clearly. All this is common sense. Okay. But there's a very important thing. And there's an old boss of mine, super boss of mine, who used to say, as far as people are concerned, you never know. You never know. And that has something to do with this rated capacity you spoke about, Pandiyan, because they may not perform at some point in time. It could be because they're not trained well. It could be because they don't know the job. It could be because they didn't have great supervision. Okay, and the very same people, 2, 3, 5 years later, you find them as mega stars. So, what is the sense here? Okay, I think you have to look beyond the obvious, and that's where you go beyond common sense. Okay. I'm sure you have your own views on this, but this I always thought so. In fact, I have a personal story. There was a time in my working life where the entire team was going through a lot of stress, and I was in a sales outpost job, and my entire team was going through a lot of stress because someone had left, joined a competitor, and they were making life difficult for us day and night, and we were defending and defending and defending. And I must say that it was a very strong and committed team. We fought day and night. But I remember one of my bosses coming from head office on a visit for an assessment. He came, he finished everything, and then he came and told me. He called me aside and he said, "Hey, Nandu, you know something? The team that ultimately wins is a fit team. Okay. I think working like this, your guys are getting tired." Okay. He said, "Don't forget, Russia, it's a Russian winter that defeated Germany. Okay. France. Okay. He said, don't become the winter of your team." He told me. I mean, for a boss to say go easy, I think it was amazing. So I think that's beyond common sense. So these are some of my thoughts on this. And
Yeah, my thoughts on this, it's once again, very cliched. It depends. One, I have seen many excellent HR managers who didn't have formal qualification in HR. They came from, they were engineers or who were in sales and marketing, who took over HR jobs, not even, as operational this thing. And they have done extremely well because they had a very instinctive sense of how to interact with people, how to relate with people, whether you are able to show empathy, you are able to listen, you are able to motivate, and they didn't have any formal qualifications. They have done very well. So a lot of HRM in that sense, as we have talked about, Nandu mentioned, you have to be fair to people, make information accessible. Many of these actually, anyone with a good, clear mind, intelligent person will know it is common sense for them. So a lot of HR definitely is common sense. But at the same time, I also think there are sometimes, managers also would like to call upon, say, people like Uma Narayanan. They do need psychologists and social scientists sometimes to understand certain people issues. Because as you know, our sciences, social sciences especially, are kind of, improving day by day. They were not what they were during Freud's time. We don't, kind of attribute everything to our mother fixation. It's come a long way. They have a lot of good things to share. To tell you practically, if line manager calls somebody, the training department, and says, I have problem with these guys are not doing the work, I want you to conduct a training program. So what do? Someone with some specialist background will say, when people don't do any work, first you ask, can they do it? Will they do it? Do they do it? The reason could be different. They can't do it can mean either they are not trained, or they are put in the wrong job, or they don't have the right tools. Training may not be the solution. Something else is, training is the solution for skill, this thing, but better coordination, provision of spares and tools is the solution. Second is, they can do the job, but they don't do it. Is it because is communication a problem? They didn't know they were supposed to do it? Job instructions, communication, or the prioritization? What is the problem? Training may not be the solution. And finally, they won't do it. They know they can do it. They don't do it because they won't do it. Where then we will see why they won't do it, why they are resisting, what is keeping them from doing the job. So if at times, if we just go by common sense, as a manager who is rushed to get results, sometimes I may take a quick step, which may not necessarily be the appropriate step. So we have to be careful. And the second thing at the same time, we also know that organizations are made up of people. And people like stability. People like comfort. People like equilibrium. I know how to do a job. I've been doing it for 20 years. I continue doing it, and things are, all fine. People like that. But unfortunately, industry is impacted from what is happening outside the company. Changes are happening. Customers are changing the taste. Extra competition has come. So these changes may be outside, but they will also demand changes in the inside. So one important role a human resource management has to do, whether it's HRD or the leader, is change management, preparing people for change, because people naturally would like to operate in the comfort zone. But organizations have the challenge of all the time getting people to be ready for the change, because you'll have to find out why people are resisting, what is stopping them, why they like this, why they don't like it, involve them. Is it just inertia, or is it because of something else? So change management is a complicated process. So this individual manager, line manager, even with a good common sense, may not be able to get the overall view. So there are times HRM may require something more than common sense, because the answers may be a little counterintuitive. So while we should definitely appreciate the fact that a lot of managers, line managers who are intelligent, who are good human beings, who know networking, who know they can actually make excellent HR managers. We have to admit that. And there may be some jobs for which we may have a person inside in your HR department of this, or we may call upon somebody from outside who have an understanding of behavioral sciences or social sciences. Say you want to do a strategic workforce planning. Individual managers will not be able to do. This is my organization strategy. I want to get into this market, get into these locations. So the kind of skills I will need will be like this, where they are available in this state, in this country. Do I have to train? Do I have to grow people? Do I have to buy people, recruit on large numbers? How do I phase it out? What do I do 2 months from now, 6 months from now, 1 year from now? Do I start a trainee program? These kind of, larger issues, you may need some dedicated help. I'm not saying necessarily specialist help, dedicated help, because line managers may not be able to spend so much time doing all that. So with that, so what we are so far saying is people are capable of extraordinary things. So how do we get the organization to gear up to get them to be able to do it? That is what we are going to talk throughout. And we also were saying that good human resource management is most of the time good common sense, good people orientation, and sometimes maybe you do need a little bit of specialist help, especially people who understand sometimes maybe law, but most of the time it is behavioral sciences. Okay, so I was once again running through the comments. I think someone like Matthew should have been called instead of me. He's saying all the points I want to say. A lot of interesting comments, and Afsal, agreeing with Nandu saying onboarding is so critical. With so much of jobs getting outsourced and specialized recruiters and others doing it, is the company spending enough time to acclimatize any new person coming in? We all know now, we have daughters, or maybe we have sisters who get married, a new bride comes, new bridegroom comes. There is a period of adjustment, right? Everything doesn't become hunky-dory day one. So that onboarding, induction, orientation is very, very critical. So Afsal is agreeing with that. Uma, you can also, if you have noticed any interesting comment, I don't know whether
Pandiyan,
I think it's time,
I want to add one thing, killing bureaucracy. Normally, that's a good HRM practice, while you make rules for so that everyone understands and things like that. But there are times you may have to kill bureaucracy. I have an experience where once there was a employee whose wife was unwell. She was admitted into Apollo, and she had to be there for 3 months. Company picked up the tab. Okay, they did special sanctions quickly and got the whole thing cleared, paid the tab. And then he came to office and he sat and he said, he was looking very worried. So we asked him, hey, what's your problem? So he said, no, my wife will need ventilator support for the rest of her life. And at that time, I think ventilators used to cost some 5-6 lakhs, 20-25 years back. And he was saying, I'm wondering how to manage it. No, I can't afford it. So I said, what's the problem? Company will pick it up. Don't worry. He said, no, please don't talk about company picking it up anymore. Because with all the reimbursement I've got so far, I'm not going to get a salary. Taxes are killing me. So we said, hey, listen, this guy needs a solution. We called the HR department. We told them, hey, listen, there's this problem. What are you going to do? The guy at the other end, senior HR guy, hey, listen, give me 30 minutes. I'll get back to you in 30 minutes. And true to his word, he got back. And he said, listen, we've solved your problem. We've solved the guy's problem. You can tell him that the company will buy this as an asset. And we'll place it in his house. And it'll be treated as VRFQ. And whenever he gets transferred, the asset will move with him. Can you believe what it did to the guy? Okay, it's a very simple story, but the sort of impact it would have had on him, I mean, I could see it with my eyes. I thought it's important to share that story because this is where bureaucracy was killed. You didn't have to put a board note, you didn't have to do that, you didn't have to do this. A group of people took a decision and said, hey, listen, we'll look after the bureaucracy, don't worry, but tell him this and it's done. There you go. I thought it was interesting and I thought it came to my mind. I just wanted to share.
So I think we have, little overshot our time, Nandu.
Sorry.
About 20 minutes. No, it's okay. We have
It's
20
a good
minutes.
space. Yeah,
we
it's a good
will
space.
take up some of the, points raised by people. Soon we should be able to, you send a message to Uma, you want to ask a question, but some which is already there, I will kind of, especially things which are kind of forcing us to discuss. Like Deepak Chala, he says something interesting. It's like, yeah, you say HRM is common sense, everything is okay. Then suddenly, certain areas, then HR becomes too technical. It is prerogative of HR. It is my baby. I am a behavioral scientist. I may say things like that. So whose responsibility is that? Very interesting question. Yeah, there are organizations where this happens. This happens when HR gives an illusion of being participative, being, a partner, but actually it is not. Then there is this problem. If many organizations, HR may actually play a political game. It's a question of who has more power. Those organizations, these questions would definitely come. But if HR is seen as something which is, willing to share why they are saying something, explain, why they are recommending something, why they are against something, and they willingly discuss with others, even at the stage of defining the problem, this issue will not come. Only when there is a kind of a confrontational attitude, this is likely to happen. Because say you go to a doctor is a specialist. Where there are areas where we know that I trust the doctor, I'm not going to fight with the doctor, or doctor is not going to say, I'm the doctor, you better listen to me. If doctor talks like that, maybe I'll go to some other doctor. But as long as the doctor is reasonable, is explaining to me what my symptoms are and what my root cause of the problem, why I should do this, it's not going to be a problem. So it's the question of relationship that exists between the so-called HR specialists and the others. That is what matters. If it is a very confrontational, power-oriented game, this would happen, definitely. On the surface, everything would look like, it is all very friendly and above board, but it may not be. So we'll have to look at the culture of the organization. If that is so, how do we get people to collaborate more, share more? Because in my view, I don't think any one function in the organization has an upper hand on anything. We all do a different job. In a family, somebody could be younger, somebody could be older, somebody is, this, but we work together. We have our roles to perform. There are times somebody comes to the forefront, the wife does it, they take leadership. There are times the husband may do it. There are times the elder son may do it, or the elder daughter. If it is seen as that the relationship is good, these questions will not come. Otherwise, so in this case, we will have to look at the relationship culture that exists in the organization, the openness of the managers, which includes HR managers as well. That is what we will have to see. So specialists are not necessarily the problem. The relationship between people could be the issue. I don't know. Nandu, you have anything to add?
No, I think, Siddhartha has spoken about, agree that killing bureaucracy is critical. However, it can be managed by doing an overhaul of the company culture. Okay. So that will be more on this on day 3. Company culture overall takes time. Okay, it's not something which is prescriptive. Okay, but yeah, more on this, Siddharth, on day 3.
So also, I'm going to pause the two of you on this discussion, and sort of there are a few other questions. Maybe we'll get some voice in the room. So I think Siddhartha had another question. Do you want to just unmute yourself, Siddhartha, and ask the question that you had earlier? It just might be good to bring in your voice. And I think Vasundhara had a question and Mangai had a question. So yes, Siddhartha.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. And this question of mine was around succession planning, right? And you all know over a period of time it has evolved. So the question that I have is, with reference to the approach currently HR follows with reference to mitigating the risk of vacancies and ensuring approach to mitigating the risk of vacancy. The approach the organization follow, right, for the critical position. Do you think this needs an evolution? There has to be an evolution on this. Let's talk about the fast track programs. Like this is one example that I'm talking about. Do you think most organizations, let's say a Fortune 500 may be a good example. Do you think they have a sustainable fast track program? Or how can we make it better? Thank you very much.
Nandu, I'll take this.
Yeah, please. This is more in your line.
See, when it comes to recruitment related issues, any company, I mean, you have two choices. You have to look at it strategically as well as tactically. Sometimes it's a crisis. Crisis means you have to operate tactically. You may have programs which you may not necessarily consider the long term, because if there is a fire in the building, I'll have to do something urgent. I won't be able to the scene. That is something we'll have to do. The tactical approach may be, reserve your basic, your general principles for the time being, and then get this fire sorted out. That kind of an approach. But at the same time, every organization will have to look at the issue of our skill set strategically. That's where overall organization, what's the strategy, where are we going, what's our corporate strategy, which markets, which kind of products, which kind of skills we need in the next 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, and what are the adjustments, contingency plans. This is the overall company program, and you'll have to translate it into people requirements, which will include requirement for your plan, plus also currently what do we have? We may have attrition, we may have people resigning, we may have people retiring, the age demographics, and a whole lot of internal data also will have to be looked at, and the outside environment, availability of people, where are they available, what is the kind of competitiveness, and so on. Many of these things will go necessarily into a strategic plan. When you do the workforce planning, this will involve different parts of the organization with someone coordinating. Somewhere you have to do numbers. If it's a larger organization, crunch numbers, but somewhere you also have to look at the qualitative aspects of it. Then you decide on a plan. For our culture, for our approach, for our budget, this seems to be the way to go. We are willing to give up this. No. There, succession planning will come in, recruitment will come in, training and development will come in, because all sides of HR have an impact on your capacity building. Capacity building in the sense, you want engineers, doctors at skill level A, B, C, D, whatever. So strategic level planning has to go on all the time. You keep adjusting it every year in the light of new information. More you get your strategy right, your tactics don't have to be haphazard. Like if you are very good in preventing fires, you have the fire drill done ready, you have safety programs, people are trained very well, you have made sure fire doesn't come, very little firefighting you will have to do. That's what in my experience I have seen. I have seen in companies where people have said, recruitment is, it's just not possible. These days, these youngsters, they come and go. Somebody gives them 5,000 rupees more, they go. I've heard all these statements, and everywhere I have seen it's workable. Everywhere, without exception. It takes some time. So how much we are able to, as managers, operational managers, HR managers, CEO, we discuss about this, what's the right approach, and what are the relevant things that we need to consider. Because when you face with a problem, most of them initially start with a solution. Pay is a problem because so-and-so is paying this much. Oh, this state, it doesn't have skill. Most of the time when you go into it, either because your recruitment process is faulty, your shortlisting is faulty, you don't have the right kind of channels, you don't have the right kind of branding. You have to look at many of these things when you look at it strategically. A strategy will take time. You have to be patient. In the meantime, you have to do some tactical programs. That's what I would say. So succession planning to engagement to everything will fit in this. Recruitment is not a standalone activity. Many companies treat it like that, and that's a big mistake.
Siddhartha,
And
anything?
you answered the question to my satisfaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we had Vasundhara. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question, because I think it's very topical.
Neuroscientist? Is it the same Vasundhara? I hope so. I don't know.
I don't know.
Vasundhara, can you
would you unmute
yourself?
yourself? I think we have a few more questions coming in later. So
okay, we can come back to Vasundhara.
I'll probably ask her question on your behalf. I mean, on her behalf, if that's the thing, because I think it's topical. I'm just pulling up the question. Yeah. How do we integrate the concept of people have infinite potential into our performance management systems? I think this goes to both.
Yeah. Hi team, can you hear me? Yeah, Vasundhara here.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I was having some issues with the audio. Yeah, so my question was, how do we integrate the concept of people having infinite potential into our performance management system? Because in terms of the weightage, should potential be given more importance than performance? So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay. Interesting question. You know, sometimes we can get constrained if we just look at, oh, I would like to make use of this idea. People have infinite potential, but right now I am constrained on many other areas. I have a 5-point scale I will have to use. I have to have a 3-step process I'll have to use. I have to have individual, I have force distribution I have to use, things like that. Whereas, because we are talking about, senior level leaders looking at something like this, we may have to look at our performance management system, performance management approach itself overall. What is it that we want to do? Is the idea of performance management system is just give rating to people so that you can pay them increment? Or the objective of performance management system is to, over a period of time, enhance the capability of people? We have to ask some of these fundamental questions. Rating scales and performance appraisal forms and other things will follow. They are the least part of the problem. It's like, you're becoming a skilled surgeon. Having a sharp scalpel is the last stage, right? So we may have to look at it from that area. I can't keep many other things constant and then but I would like to look at it. But at the thought level, if we believe people are capable of a lot more, we will start questioning many of our current people practices. Walter Deming, he said these individual performance appraisal systems are actually harming the organization.
Yeah.
Well, we may not take that extreme view, but we may have to think about it. A lot of managers don't. Because many times when we talk about performance appraisal system, we think, oh, it is a rating scale. It is done once a year. Then it becomes a ritual. It doesn't serve the purpose of the supervisor or the employee. It only makes everybody neurotic in the organization. So are we prepared to ask those deeper questions? Then we may be able to, get the bigger ideas going into the organization. I know it's not a very easy answer, Vasundhara, but we have to think about it.
I want to add on something to what you said, Pandiyan. Okay. Performance appraisal is only part of a person. Okay. It refers to what the person has done during a period in time. Okay. Vis-a-vis what they set out to do. Now, I know many systems where there's a performance appraisal, and you talk about objectives met, not met, etc., etc. There's discussion between job holder and supervisor. It's done, but potential review is another part of it. Okay, and you can't build in potential into performance review. Potential is another part of this entire process, and that you will look at. Okay, and current performance, the potential, all that will determine, okay, what development inputs the person needs. So I don't think you should look at infinite capacity. Therefore, what performance can you do? It doesn't work that way. I hope I've managed to.
I understand there are practical aspects of it which we haven't answered, Vasundhara. I fully understand that. But I think when we talk about people have infinite potential, it is more an outlook than anything else. If as a supervisor, I have that outlook, I would look for the best in people. I would look at every opportunity, not necessarily perform, even if a company forces me to use a particular performance appraisal system or whatever, the way I look at people who work with me would be very different if I believe that is true. Day in, day out, I'm interacting with people. Supervisors' behavior most of the time kind of, has a very big bearing on people's performance, their development, their ambition, their, aspirations, and so on. But yes, practically, we may have to do a lot of other things to fix performance appraisal systems, as we have in many organizations. That's a long subject. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, has it anyway addressed what you had in mind?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, it's been triggered a lot of thinking. So I'll engage in a lot of thought experiments and probably get back.
Yeah.
So I think we have, so one of the things that I'm noticing is that as we're going through today, and we have 3 days together, and that's the reason why we sort of divided them into 3 days. So we're beginning to sort of tease around the human element or the people element of people in potential and bringing back the human dynamics into HR. I think that's the trend we're sort of moving forward. We have a few more minutes before we close, but then we have a few questions that I think we can address. And we also will come in about 10 minutes ahead for anybody to address some of the leftover questions from today, if that's okay, Nandu and Pandiyan. So we'll be on 10 minutes before. I think there's one question by Sujata. So I don't know if she's still there, Sujata. If you could unmute and give the context of your question. I don't know if she's still
Hey, Shah. Hi, Uma. Hi, Nandu and Pandiyan. My question, hi. So my question is, just wanted to know if you have any examples with your vast experience in this space, instances where, there have been certain HR decisions that had to be taken, which would favor the talent or the people, the employees in a particular role, right? Not just in a role, help the employees, which may not completely be in sync with the objectives. When I talk about the objectives, I'm talking about, the top line objectives of that particular department, right? But somewhere taking, more inclined towards the people dimensions, the aspirations, and the needs. I know it's a kind of a tough situation, especially if the HR organizations are very in tune with, what is the requirement for the organization. So I want to hear if there have been any outliers that have come your way.
Yeah, okay, I'll try to, I don't know whether I have a perfect example, but I can think of something, one of the company that I have worked in, these days, of course, there is, this CSR, companies are forced to contribute certain amount of money and all that, every company is supposed to do it. But in the earlier days, there are companies which used to do it even though it was not mandated by law. But usually large corporations, the way they used to do it is call some NGO, give them some money, and, they've done the bit for the society. On the other hand, we found one strength organization has is the people power. Lot of employees want to, whether it is a social motivation, whether it is their altruistic tendencies, I don't know, they want to do social work. So we lobbied hard and we said, our participation in CSR is not money, but time and effort, because it is a large company. So a lot of employees, workers to officers to supervisors and so on. We kind of, made a change. I don't know whether it goes against the stated company objective, but company used to, give so much of budget and then it is done. But now it means giving employees time off. In fact, we get time off during work. Yes, Saturday, Sunday, sometimes, factory workers used to come and clean up a lake. Okay. But People were also given time off during work to do it. And there were other instances where, people felt we need to give leave to fathers, parental leave. Yes, law mandates maternity leave should be given to women employees. But, in our country, it's not very common to see leave for fathers at the time a child is born, because it's a very critical time. That persuasion did work, and company did go for something like this. And there was another instance where we found, every company, one headache is marking attendance, right? Why do we mark attendance? Because there are some people who may not come into the office and then, get attendance. We said, let's have faith-based attendance. If I want to take leave, I will apply for leave. Otherwise, I am assumed to be present. Accounts and payroll will pay me the salary. Everyone said, my God, no, this, that, whatever. But it worked beautifully. Initially, it looked like it was against company's interest, allowing employees to, go scot-free. I may not come into the office and I may claim attendance, things like that. But in practice, what we found was 95% of the employees don't misuse. They are true to the word. They don't misuse. And we make rules and regulations for 5% of the employees. But companies mistakenly think it is against companies' interest when you don't have these, the kill bureaucracy kind of statement Nandu made. We make a lot of rules. So I don't know whether it is going against companies' bottom line approach or top line approach, whatever, but at least common sense approach. Unlimited sick leave, some companies give, things like that. These are all, managers know that, the cost is something, but the benefit is employee trust, employee goodwill. I don't know whether this example kind of goes in that, but
I want to add a slightly different point on this. Maybe we'll talk about it later. I think it's there in day 2 or day 3. Normally it could be that there's a high performer. Okay, there's maybe sales, he brings in a lot of revenue, or maybe in production, he gets in a lot of output in a nice way. He knows how to do it. He manages the shift very well. But these are people who don't behave in accordance, with what the company desires. I mean, on one side, you have a set of rules. On the other side, there's a cultural behavior. They don't behave. And Doctor, if you were referring to such behavior and whether the company will tolerate such things, I don't have an example ready. I'm sure I can bring out an example over the next 2 days. But here, I think the company should consider not just the benefits, which could be revenue or greater output or lower cost, but they should look into the hidden costs of such behavior. Because Pandiyan and I discussed this particularly.
Ventilator example.
Yeah. Okay. They should look at the hidden costs of such behavior. Okay. Of misbehaving. And if the company tolerates such people, what is it doing? Okay. What signal is it sending? What signal is top management sending about things, saying that, hey, listen, if your performance is okay, you can do anything. So I don't agree it's a good thing to tolerate such behavior. And I can share an example later when we come to the topic of how it was managed.
Uma, I think we are close to this thing.
Yes.
Did it answer your question, Doctor?
Yeah.
So one thing I can suggest is tomorrow, day after, we
Great
can,
examples.
Nandu and I, we are ready to come 15 minutes, half an hour early and be available. Or maybe after the program, we can have a cocktail hour we could do for informal this thing if needed. But I think we should respect people's time and close this thing. I'm sorry I made you overshoot.
So now you know why I
Doctor, was that answer okay for you?
Yes, she said okay. Yeah,
okay. I didn't hear.
I must mention, Dr. Sujata, I enjoyed your webinar very much on innovation.
We enjoyed it very much.
Thank you so much. And I'm really enjoying this. And it did answer my question. I got some great examples from your Pandiyan. And I think the perspective that you brought in, Nandu, is wonderful. There is a negative side to it. And how do we deal with it? Looking forward to a discussion around that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think what I would do is to close out is there are a few questions around role of HR with reference to the current, role, work from home, etc. I think Mangai had it, Shamali had a question around, what we think are the skill sets that HRBP have. And I think these are topical that we can begin with starting off tomorrow, 15 minutes ahead. I think we can start 15 minutes ahead, sort of get into the conversation, answer some of these questions. So I'll just open the floor for any 1 or 2 comments and then we can close out. So is anything else that anybody would like to comment? Not a question necessarily.
Landing problem?
Landing problem.
You are still cruising the runway. Okay, sorry.
No, I did see 1 or 2 on mute. So
Yeah,
I just
sure,
wanted to give that one room for that. And it would be just a comment of 1 sentence. No, we still have. So a comment, please, and not a question at this point. Yeah.
I have a comment. And this goes back to my background with the Indian Army. And I can safely say that every manager, if he recognizes that he's first an HR manager and then any other manager, I think many of the problems we discussed today would automatically get solved.
The volume is very low.
You said every manager is a HR manager, and tomorrow this is also a kind of a topic.
Yeah, wonderful. I couldn't agree more with you, sir. I couldn't agree more with you.
Yeah.
And
whether it is army or any other organization.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I picked it up in the Indian Army for only one simple reason. Over there, it is through and through only people management. And when I say people management, the HR in there is not human resources management, but human relations management.
Wow.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So Anto, and we close. Yes.
Can I say one thing?
Session. Compliments to both the speakers and the coordinator, Dr. Uma. Beautiful, brilliant, excellent.
Thank you. Gopalan, sir.
Yeah. See, the 1960s, or 64 or something, there was a book by Rustamji and Northcott Parkinson. It was a Tata publication called Business is People. I mean, that sums up everything. Like Mr. Gonzalez said, every manager is a HR manager. HR is a term probably not there in those days. Okay. So HR, it was called personal relations. It was used to be called personal relations in my days when I was an apprentice and things like that. But then I read this book, Business is People, and there's fund of this thing about how everything is about people. Whether you take production, you take sales, you take management, you take managing director, you take chaprasi, everything is about people. So I think, if we can get this book in print, I don't know if it continues to be in print. I got it and gave it to my people like 25 years back. Circulated in my company. I don't know what it brought finally. I mean, I didn't assess it. That's maybe my fault. But then this is a recommendation I make. People, please look for Business is People. Northcott Parkinson and Rustamji.
And topical to today is people potential and business prosperity. So with that, we'll close it for today. We will begin 15 minutes ahead tomorrow. And tomorrow is all around the role of HR. How do we sort of look through these? So it's deepening the conversation today. And I think Nandu was talking about, at the end of the day 3, he'll actually reveal why when the title of the session is such. So I think what this brings, this webinar format brings, is deepening the questions. So please keep these questions alive. Please keep the people element of human resources alive until tomorrow, and we look forward to having all of you back tomorrow 15 minutes ahead, and then day 2 topic will start on time tomorrow 6:30 IST. So thank you all for a lovely interaction. It is the interaction that brings things alive. So thank you, Nandu, Pandiyan, and we draw a close to today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.